Chapter 1 Pussyfooting Around. Time was fixing to run out. U.S. military's assault on the Japanese Imperial Palace had already begun, but Zack needed to see his daughters and his best friend one more time, to say goodbye in case he failed today. But no, he couldn't rush this part. Across the street, his 50-story office building loomed, just another gemstone in the Tokyo skyline. Cars zipped back and forth. Wind whistled between the buildings, yet the repugnant smell of B.O., like rotten grapefruit with a hint of tube socks, hung heavy on the passers-by. And it was only the morning. Heart pounding, Zack looked inward and inched his spirit towards his emotions. He focused and took in every detail to prevent his power from consuming him. His spirit, the mark of the talented, flowed through his body. Inside him, it moved like an extra arm, unhindered by his physical form. Someone jostled him, drawing his attention. The yawning crowd marched down the sidewalk near Shinbashi Station, glaring at Zack as they flowed around him like a creek around a pickup tire. He stood about a head taller than the lot, with shoulders wider than any two of them. Yet they still looked as if they wanted to fight. Sweating, Zack took a deep breath to stop himself from punching one of the skinny fools. He would ignore the untalented. They couldn't see or feel what he is doing anyways. In his mind, unlike chefs and handlers, there were 8 glowing wells of power his spirit could touch. Refillable paint buckets, divided into 2 types. The black energy in the 4 wells on the left half of his mind. Each represented a negative emotion: rage, disgust, terror, and grief. Focus, Zack told himself. He couldn't afford to lose himself to his power. Not today. Not this close to his daughters. Not this close to his best friend, who had gotten hurt the last time trying to bring him back. He wouldn't let that happen again. On the right half of his mind, the positive emotion wells of joy, acceptance, anticipation, and surprise overflowed with radiant white energy. With his spirit this close, the energy practically burned him, sending unfiltered ripples of pleasure down to his toes. To taste his emotions without pause and draw on his power within the blink of an eye would be glorious. Spirit preserve him, but he longed to do it. If he only did it this once, no. One step at a time. Unfortunately, Zack didn't have the luxury of painting with only his positive or negative emotions. Of the 3 types of artists, Zack was an abomination, forced to pay the price for mixing black and white. His spirit jerked towards the energy wells. Yes, yes, yes! Quickly, unhindered. Time to stop pussyfooting around. No! A voice screamed inside his head. Focus! It was all Zack could do to pinpoint his spirit into his joy and disgust. Magnificent. The building crafted by the women he had loved, still loved, despite failing to save them, glowed with the sun. Disease-covered birds perched over yonder, cawing and cuckooing like the plague rats, and spiders with wings. The unfiltered summer heat had begun to bake his skin, despite his recent tan. Wonderful warmth. Icky humidity. White and black energy circulated along his spirit like 2 different types of coke being sucked through a twisted wishbone straw. The 2 sources of power touched. A crimson flash. Why was he just standing there? What did he have to fear from today? The mongrels who had invaded the Imperial Palace should be the ones shaking in their boots. No more holding back. Time to bathe in their blood. He needed to rip their heads off. Those sons of bitches dared to cross him over some bullshit secret conditions written into a post-war treaty. They would see. Mailing their body parts back to their families was the least they deserved. Their blood. Their blood would cascade from every orifice, and the ecstasy that would bring. Clenching his jaw, Zack turned away from his office building and shoved through the crowd towards the station. Gray paint coursed down his spirit from his mind to his hands. A quick train ride to get there. Zack could practically taste those bastards' filthy blood, and a smile of delight contorted his lips. The gray paint poured from his fingertips into the air around him. And while he was there, the Emperor would get his... Zack froze in place and shook the raw emotions that drawing on his power had induced. Safe, slow, but safe from the urgings, free from the grasp of his power, for now. As it always did, the gray paint gathered into a ball, basketball-sized, and hung in the air in front of Zack like a balloon. Someone bumped into him, but the crowd soon parted around Zack, congested flow somehow increasing their pace. Zack reached out and touched the hovering blob of paint, giving it the command, armor. With the command, the paint slapped at his body like a wild brush strokes, encasing every inch of his body in seamless armor. The minor amount of paint used to make it near invisible spread thin as it was, but the itch of an artist's power shouldn't be felt unless he was close enough to spit on his enemies. No, that only applied to the talented. The fools colliding into his back as they stared at their phones couldn't see or feel shit. The glare from all the windows coerced Zack into wishing the armor wouldn't perish sight. But even if he had used a truckload of paint and made the armor solid, it wouldn't. The sun would still make him squint. Zack reached through the armor and into his jacket, pulling out a bar of Meiji dark chocolate. After peeling the wrapper back, he bit off half. Bitter slime allowed him to indulge in disgust, while the ecstasy of chocolate on his tongue topped off his well of joy. All 8 energy wells full, he returned the melting chocolate to his pocket and jaywalked across the street and entered his office building. The guard at the door arched an eyebrow and said, "Boss?" with a hint of surprise in his voice. Automatic doors closed behind Zack, but the morning sun still found a way to roast the back of his neck through the thick glass. Even with the AC blast in the lobby, empty save for Zack and the guard, the summer humidity didn't want to go away. The guard reached into his pocket and pulled out a smartphone. "I'll let Miyuki..." Zack closed the distance. "Sorry." He threw a right cross, nailing the guard's chin. Zack caught the guard before he could hit the tiled floor, then dragged his body to the receptionist's desk between the stairwell and the 4 elevators. Zack couldn't risk his second in command, Miyuki, discovering he had come back. His armor would stop her from trying to cage him and fire, but he couldn't afford to fight her. Not with his daughters and his best friend here in the building. While he stuffed the guard's unconscious body under the desk, Zack wondered where everybody was. Despite being Sunday, there should be someone else here. Shaking his head, he hurried to the elevator and headed up. Stupid J-pop music blared through the elevator speakers. Whatever happened to relaxing music, like metal? The elevator dinged on the 50th floor and Zack stepped out, tiptoeing through his office. He crossed the carpeted room to the back door behind his desk. So far, so good. No Miyuki, but no one else either. Zack opened the door to the playroom he'd installed for his daughters. The floor undulated beneath his feet and sent his heart into his throat. He stumbled onto the foam baby mats that acted as carpet for the playroom. Had Miyuki already found the guard? Zack searched the spacious room for his daughters as the walls shook. If his best friend Luna were here too. His Alabama football memorabilia fell from their shelves and crashed on the floor between the 2 pink cribs on the other side of the room. Moments later, a buzzing tablet and a smartphone joined his trophy replicas on the child-proof floor. How much time did he have? The door behind him swung shut while the door on the right wall creaked. Through the window on his left, other buildings across the Tokyo skyline wobbled with the morning sun hanging just above him. This wasn't Miyuki using her power. Just a standard quake. Zack sighed. As the quake stilled, two giggling voices and someone gasping came from behind.